Many of you know this series already, but for those of you that don't, it's delightful to have you. This is our DBSA California third Thursday inspirational speaker series. And today we have Tigran Makunts, Ask the Expert. And I'll just read Tigran's bio briefly to get us going. Which naturally just okay, here we go. Here we go. So Tigran is a pharmacist by training, specialized in drug safety for approved drugs and drugs still in clinical trial. His experience spans from working in community pharmacy to doing research at the FDA, researching psychiatric medications at UCSD, and currently working on clinical trials in endocrinology, neurology, and oncology. Tigran enjoys playing tennis in his free time. Alrighty. So, Krish, if you could spotlight Tigran.
All right. So first, thank you for having me. I hope uh, you can get something useful out of my talk. I'm gonna break it into like different sections of my life and how I basically interacted with mental health, what I learned about it. I was born in Armenia, and when I was 5, 6 years old, the Soviet Union collapsed and Armenia fell into this chaos with war and like poverty. There was a blockade, and then there was an earthquake, like 50,000 people died. So I was kind of bathed in PTSD. So, and I had some family with mental health issues. My mother had mental health issues, and my grandmother had mental health issues. So it was the normal for me growing up. So when I think back, because those were my first memories, I didn't realize that that was none of that was okay. But but gave birth to an interest to mental health because you're in stress all the time, and you learn to adjust to it and live with it and move on. So many years go by, and then I come to the United States in 2001. I worked for a while, and I went to junior college in San Diego, where I met Wendy. Wendy was my English tutor, and she helped me write essays, and we became friends. Uh, Wendy was kind of my, I know, like the mental health kind of destigmatizing inspiration because she, first of all, she introduced me to the world of like the community of mental health in San Diego. We went to NAMI, Nationalized Mental Health, mental illness meetings. We went to DBSA meetings. And what I learned from that is that many people I met with mental illness that is kind of this in this stigma that, that's it. This is a disability and you're done. You can't do anything in this life. What I learned there was that with proper treatment, with proper therapy and psychiatry, you can actually do well and thrive. Uh, so that was very inspiring to me, and it inspired me to do research. It inspired me to go into pharmacy and specialize in psychiatry because it was like magic to me. Something about the mental health issues. It's was a verdict prior to this experience. It was like a verdict that, okay, you're done. You can't do anything else. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing people that I can't tell that they have mental health issues until they tell me that they're on like drugs A, B, C, and they're working and they're studying, and so very inspirational. Thank you, Wendy. So a few more years go by, and I go to pharmacy school, and I continued being involved in the community, uh, I used to go and just sit in and take some pharmacy students with me to the DBSA meetings that were held at the San Diego Veterans Affairs on Thursday evenings, if I remember. Uh, and that, again, you sit there and then you hear stories, you hear how resilient the community is, you learn about the importance of the community, how everybody supported each other. And we did set up with Wendy, we coordinated and set up meetings where we would take our psychiatric pharmacist to the BSA meeting to do a Q&A. So the psychiatric pharmacist is a pharmacist that does residency in psychiatry, so they're the top specialist. And at the same time, we organized a series of talks at the medical and pharmacy school at UCSD, where Wendy would come and speak about mental illness to pharmacy and medical students, to the issues, the barriers, what you want to see from your provider, and like and that was very, very useful because pharmacies and medical pharmacy students kind of go from high school to intense tutoring to college and then to graduate school without actually seeing life. And it was a very eye-opening experience. So everybody loved those series of talks that we did. And thank you again, Wendy. You were wonderful. So my interest in psychiatry continued, but I really like the topic of resistant disorders, so things that were hard to treat. There was a study that showed that SNRIs and SSRIs work only in half of the population, even with proper adherence. And usually the adherence for these drugs is very poor because people take them for a week and they don't see a difference and then they give up. These are common antidepressants like sertraline or like escitalopram, fluoxetine. So for these drugs, what's important to know is that it can take up to 8 weeks to see an effect. So you kind of have to stick to it. But I feel like in our healthcare system, there's no time for the provider to do a proper consultation and the follow through to make sure the patients are taking it. But so that aside, so even with proper adherence, these drugs don't work on half of the patients will not respond. You can try all the classes, tricyclic antidepressants, serotonin, norepinephrine inhibitors, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and nothing works. So that meant it's saying that there are some other mechanisms by which mental illness operates. So I got interested, and we learned that we had a ketamine clinic at UCSD that was used to treat severe depression. And at that time, I was doing research in the pharmacy school on drug side effects. So me and my friend Isaac Cohen, he's also a pharmacist, also very interested in psychiatry. We looked at the side effects of ketamine, and we compared the patients who were in pain, who were taking pain medications with ketamine, and we compared them to patients who were taking pain medications without ketamine, and we showed that patients who took ketamine did not report depression as a side effect. And overall, in the safety database, this is like many 20 million reports of all the side effects of all drugs globally that the FDA collects. About 5% of patients pain is depressing. You get depression with pain, you get anxiety with pain, but people who were taking ketamine were reporting much lower rates. So that was interesting to me because we already knew, like on a small scale, that treatment-resistant depression, especially with suicidal patients, responds to ketamine, and in some patients, just one visit to the doctor can kind of keep them going for 6 months. So you don't have to take it every day and stuff. So after our research, next year ketamine got approved for depression. So we knew it's working before the FDA approved ketamine for depression, just doing our our student projects. So I'm very proud of it. That was exciting. Another interesting project we had was with Botox. So there was it was in popular media, kind of brushed over it. This Botox's antidepressant effect. Botox is a botulinum toxin. So its popular use is for wrinkles, but in medicine, it's used for many other things. It's used for muscle spasms. It's used for migraines, very helpful with migraines, very helpful with muscle spasms. And the Botox's effect on depression was brushed away, kind of joked about, like, oh, it makes you look good, and that's why you're not depressed, or it doesn't let you frown. So if you don't frown, then you don't get the feedback to your brain that you're upset, and that's how you don't get depressed. So what we showed was in a similar research using side effects, we showed that independent where you do the injection, the rates of depression were lower. So it doesn't need to be for cosmetic reasons. So Botox may be doing something that we just don't understand yet. And then this physician from Germany reached out who was specializing in this. So he has a clinic treating depression with Botox. So we did like a big study together, and we showed that Botox is interesting. Yeah. Then time goes on. I graduate pharmacy school. I went and did research on drug safety at the Food and Drug Administration, that HHS, in Maryland. So that in a small town north of DC, in Silver Springs. And after that, I went to work at Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. So this is a nonprofit look in the Bay Area that was treating MDMA, was treating PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, with MDMA. And I was very interested in this project because I have PTSD from my childhood experiences, and PTSD is notoriously difficult to treat. And the reasons why it's difficult to treat is that patients refuse to acknowledge they have PTSD. Patients refuse to talk about it, even if they have the diagnosis. So talk therapy is very difficult because revisiting the trauma, there's an aversion to that. So they're like, no, I don't want to talk about it. One way of processing trauma is during the sleep. But in patients with PTSD, you have nightmares. So you wake up during your processing. So you don't process it. So you kind of go through with it. You take high doses of antidepressants that kind of numb you. But the underlying cause is never addressed. So at MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, they used MDMA and patients. And so MDMA is the ecstasy. So it's a party street drug, but it has very important medical effects because what it does, it calms down the part of the brain that's amygdala responsible for the stress response. And what is PTSD? So PTSD is kind of your brain is always in fight or flight. So you're hyper vigilant, you're very sensitive to stress, and you get memory flashbacks, and you get triggered very easily. So I'll give you an example from my experience. Like, let's say, well, we have a war going on, right? I can have like an episode watching the news. So I'll see some war image and it comes back and my heart rate goes up. I start sweating and it's almost automatic. I'm not even thinking about it. It's almost like the reptilian brain responding to danger. So that's what PTSD is. You're kind of in this always like fight or flight animal mode. The MDMA calms that response down, and also it kind of brings out this openness. And patients who were given MDMA were very open to therapy, and they showed they opened up to therapy, so they could actually talk about their trauma. That was another like non-traditional drug that may have a very strong effect. A similar to like psilocybin. So that's a chemical found in psychedelic mushrooms. A little different, but that drug is being studied for smoking cessation, substance abuse, depression. So psychedelics have a promising potential. It's just there because after the Cultural Revolution and uh, the federal government defunded all the research because people didn't want to go to join the army anymore and many other cultural reasons. And they defunded it, but that's unfortunately. At the same time, but also those drugs were getting abused too. And so about I'm now they're coming back because now they're saying that the field of psychiatry, especially in the pharmaceutical field of psychiatry, it's not okay that you can treat only half of your patients properly. You know, that's not okay. Uh, so that's my experience in psychiatric research. Uh, After MAPS, I went on to work on clinical trials in oncology and neurology and hepatic disease in the Bay Area, and I monitor the safety of clinical trial patients to make sure like if making sure they're safe, making sure that the benefit of the drug outweighs the risk. And so it's been my yeah, so drug safety has been my passion. Uh, I think I think that's my spiel.
Okay, well, thank you for your spiel.
Thank
Um,
you.